Today we're going to unbox and take a look at the Ryobi P225 brushless drywall screw gun. This is pretty new. It's been out for a couple of months. We don't have it yet where I live, so I had to go on a little bit of a trip to get it, but I got one. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what a drywall screw gun does, it is basically like a drill, but it's for screwing in drywall screws. So this is a piece of drywall, and these are drywall screws. They're Phillips head screws. And what you have to do when you're securing drywall either to a ceiling or to walls is you have to screw through the drywall into wood or a metal stud or a joist if it's going into the ceiling. And you have to do it in such a way that you drive the screw just below the surface of the drywall, and that makes a dimple. And the reason why you want to do that is because when you come back to mud and paint, you won't have any bumps. If you have a little dimple there, the mud will fill in and cover the screw completely, and then when you paint over it, you won't be able to tell that it's screwed there. That is a really difficult thing to do with a regular Phillips head, a regular Phillips head attached to a drill. What I use is my impact driver, which is even probably worse than using a drill, because the impact driver, if it starts to do the hammering, can mess up the drywall. Because this stuff is pretty brittle. So what I have for it is a Phillips head with a magnet. So this is essentially just a standard Phillips head with a special magnet sleeve that goes on it. And what this does for me is it holds the drywall screw in line, and what it also does is once the drywall screw gets below the surface, this head rubs against the surface and prevents the screw from being driven any deeper. So this is like your cheap solution to the problem. And I've done a lot of screws in the basement, but you have to be very, very careful. If you go too hard, too fast, you'll go too deep into the drywall, and the drywall will pop on you, which means the drywall will actually not be held by the screw, so it'll end up being like this, where it's not actually holding, the drywall screw is not actually holding the drywall to the stud. And if you go too slow and not deep enough, you'll end up with the screw sitting on the surface, and you can't really mud over that and make it look smooth. So you have to drive it, you have to dimple it. That's the thing with drywall. So a drywall screw gun, what it does is it has that sort of head built into it. You can see here. And it's really good because you can use adjustments on that to adjust the depth of your screws. So you get the same depth of set every time. And it does it really fast. It doesn't have any hammering like an impact, so it's not gonna chew up your board that way. So that's why I got this. So let's take a look at it. So first up, you can see, I mean, that's what it looks like. It's got up to 4,700 RPMs. It's got quiet drive, which basically means that it's not going to, even if you pull the trigger, it's not going to actually screw the screw into the wall unless it detects pressure between the screw gun and the wall. So turning around to the back, you see it's brushless, which is good. That should help it last longer. Adjustable nose cone, again for driving the depth. The quiet drive is basically it's not gonna drive the screw gun unless there's pressure between the gun and the wall. And that's good because it makes it quiet, but it also saves on battery because you're not spinning unnecessarily. It's got a mag tray, which is pretty typical of most Ryobi drills and impact drivers. So that's just a little tray show you what it looks like. This is my old impact driver. It's a little tray with a magnet in it, and your screws stick to it like that. So it's got an LED, which is pretty standard, and a belt clip and overmolding whoop-de-doo. So let's tear into it and take a look at what it looks like, and then maybe we'll see it in action. So this is the main unit itself. It's kind of long compared to a regular impact driver. Probably not a good comparison. It's probably a closer comparison to a drill. But here you can see, I don't know if you can see, it sticks out. It's almost, I would say, close to twice the length of an impact driver. But that's not going to be an issue because you're not going to be using this in any kind of tight quarters. You're usually using this to hang ceiling or wall drywall, so that's not a big deal. It's got a nice feel to it. It's a little bit weighty, but it feels solid. It's got a lock down here. Not sure what that does, if that's the quiet drive or what. And then it's got direction. So it's got a directional trigger. Metal is going to be locked. There's the mag tray down there. Oh, I guess quiet drive is engaged by hitting this little button down here. So maybe the lock is just to make sure that it doesn't... I don't know what that lock is for. We'll have to see. But anyway, so that's the unit. This is the nose cone. So let's see if we can get that off. Not sure how to get it off here. Oh, there we go. You just yank it. So yank it, and then the nose cone, you can see when I twist it, it gets longer and shorter, and that's gonna be how you control the depth when you use it. So let's put that aside. Let's see what else we have in here. We have an instruction manual. I'm not sure what this is. Battery pack stuff. Like batteries, I guess you can use with it. Not sure why they have a separate piece of paper for that. Anyway, so yeah, it's pretty standard Ryobi stuff. It talks a little bit about setting the depth, driving screws using quiet drive, and that's pretty much it. So what else do we have in the box? Okay, so there's a couple other things in the box here. So this is the belt clip. I probably won't use that, but you clip that in under here, I believe. How does that go? Yeah, I believe you slide this in. Anyway, I'm not going to use the belt clip, it doesn't really matter. And then we have your standard sort of extension and a Phillips, it says PR2. I'm not sure if that's different than a standard Phillips head. A standard Phillips head is PH2, I believe. So this may be a little bit pointier. Let's take a look. This is a PH2, so for comparison, I think maybe it's just a little bit smaller and a little bit shorter. But anyway, not important. So I think it's supposed to fit in here. So how does this work? It's awfully tight. There it goes. Okay. So there's a nice, I think there's a magnet in there, so that's going to help with holding the screw to the bit. And then just goes in there like that. presumably this releases like the impact driver does, where you just push it down, yeah, and you can pull it out. But it's not going anywhere unless you push down that collar. So, and we'll put this back together. Okay, so there you go. You can see here the amount of recessed space. So let's see if we can get that to go up or down. So we want to go deeper, so we want to go this way. So yeah, so we want it to go shallower. Going deep will go right through the drywall itself. So you can see now we're getting pretty fine. So you can get it to where it is, and then so you want it to go a little bit below the surface. So you want to see a little bit of the bit. So maybe something like that. It's not quite. Maybe that's maybe a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch exposed. You can just barely see the bit in there. So then that's gonna go in real quick. So stands up without a battery. That's nice. So let's engage quiet drive. So quiet drive. So I'm holding the trigger with quiet drive enabled, and it's not going to do anything. I'll set up a real test, show you what it does in a real scenario. Okay, we're back. We've got the Ryobi P225. What I have learned is that you actually need this bit exposed a little bit, because the way this works is you're going to push pressure down. There's actually a spring in there. So in order to get it to recess, you actually need it to be up a little bit proud of the collar. Once you get the depth down, though, you line it up with the wall. So I've got the quiet drive turned on. You line it up with the wall, and you apply pressure. And you can see there that is exactly the depth that we want it to be at. So you can see here there's a slight dimpling, and this is one I did before, and this is another test one. So that's really nice. That's what you want from a drywall screw gun. You want it to dimple the drywall screw slightly, and you can do it really fast. As you can see, it took me like a second, and I didn't have to worry that I was going to pop the drywall. And you're hanging a lot of drywall. So this is definitely a very cool thing to have if you're doing a lot of screws.